In the 7th century of the Common Era, in a dry and largely overlooked corner of the Arabian Peninsula, a movement began that would, within a single lifetime, transform the religious and political landscape of the Near East, and within a century, reshape a territory stretching from the Atlantic coast of Spain to the river valleys of Central Asia. This is the story of Islam, not a single event, but a long and complex history spanning 14 centuries, built by millions of people across dozens of cultures, languages, and continents. It is a history that includes the life of a merchant from Makkah named Muhammad, peace be upon him, who Muslims believe received revelation from God and became the founder of a new religious community. It is a history of empires, the Rashidun, the Umayyad, the Abbasid, the Ottoman, the Safavid, the Mughal, each with its own triumphs, contradictions, and eventual decline. It is a history of scholars in Baghdad and Cordoba who preserved, translated, and expanded upon the philosophical and scientific inheritance of Greece, Persia, and India. And it is a history entangled with war, trade, faith, politics, and the ordinary lives of the people who lived it. Much of this history is well documented. Some of it remains genuinely disputed among historians, and where that is true, this account will say so, rather than pretend to a certainty that the evidence does not support. This is the story of how a small community of believers in a desert town became one of the great civilizational forces in human history, told as far as possible through the lens of careful historical scholarship. Before the rise of Islam in the early 7th century CE, the Arabian Peninsula was not the historical blank space it is sometimes imagined to be. It was a region of considerable diversity, shaped by geography, trade, and the shifting influence of the two great empires that bordered it, the Byzantine Empire to the northwest and the Sasanian Empire of Persia to the northeast. Modern historians, drawing on inscriptions, archaeology, and the accounts of neighboring civilizations, describe a peninsula whose population was concentrated less in the arid interior than along its fertile margins, the mountainous highlands of Yemen in the south, the oasis towns of the Hijaz along the western coast, and the settled agricultural regions near the Persian Gulf. Southern Arabia, corresponding roughly to modern Yemen, had for centuries been home to organized kingdoms with monumental architecture, irrigation systems, and written scripts. The Sabaean Kingdom, famous in later legend for its association with the Queen of Sheba, and successor states such as Himyar, built substantial economic power on the incense trade and on agriculture supported by works such as the Marib Dam. By the 6th century CE, Himyar had adopted forms of monotheism, including Judaism, among its ruling elite for a period, and the region had become an arena of competition between Byzantine-aligned Christian Aksum across the Red Sea in Ethiopia and Sasanian Persia. Around 570 CE, an Aksumite-backed force under a commander named Abraha is reported in later Islamic tradition to have marched against Mecca with the intention of destroying the Kaaba, an event referenced in the Quran as the Year of the Elephant. Historians note that this campaign is difficult to verify in precise detail from independent sources, and some scholars have questioned aspects of the traditional narrative, though South Arabian inscriptions do confirm Abraha's rule and military activity in the region during this general period. Central and northern Arabia, including the Hijaz, where Makkah and Medina are located, lacked the centralized kingdoms of the south. Instead, this region was organized largely around tribal confederations and kinship networks. Tribes varied enormously in lifestyle. Some were nomadic pastoralists, the Bedouin, moving with herds of camels, sheep, and goats between seasonal grazing lands. Others were settled agriculturalists and traders based in oasis towns such as Yathrib, later known as Medina, and Taif. Political authority in this environment was diffuse. There was no unified Arabian state, no single monarch, and no centralized legal code. Instead, Order was maintained through customary tribal law, systems of alliance and protection, and, when necessary, retaliation and blood feud. Honor, lineage, and tribal solidarity, a concept later Arabic sources call asabiyyah, were central organizing principles of social life. Mecca itself, though modest in population compared to the great cities of the Byzantine and Sasanian worlds, held particular religious and commercial significance. It was home to the Kaaba, a cubic structure that pre-Islamic Arabian tradition already regarded as sacred, housing representations of numerous deities alongside, according to Islamic tradition, an association with the prophet Ibrahim, and his son Ismail. The religious landscape of pre-Islamic Arabia, a period Islamic tradition later termed the Jahiliyyah, often translated as the Age of Ignorance, was predominantly polytheistic, with deities such as Allat, Al-Usa, and Manat worshipped alongside a supreme god known as Allah, who many historians of religion believe was already understood by many Arabs as a creator god, even if not exclusively worshipped. Alongside this polytheism, Arabia also contained significant Jewish communities, particularly around Yathrib and in parts of Yemen, as well as Christian communities, especially in the north near Byzantine territory and in the Persian-influenced east and south. Zoroastrianism, the state religion of Sasanian Persia, also had a presence in eastern Arabia. There is also evidence for individuals described in later sources as Hanifs, monotheists who rejected polytheism without formally converting to Judaism or Christianity, though the precise scope and coherence of this category among historians remains debated. Mecca's prominence owed much to its position on trade routes linking the incense-producing regions of southern Arabia with the markets of Syria and the Byzantine Mediterranean. The Quraysh, the tribe that dominated Mecca by the 6th century, developed a mercantile economy built on caravan trade, and their custodianship of the Kaaba gave them a form of religious authority that reinforced their commercial position. The sanctuary's sacred status enabled a truce during pilgrimage seasons, allowing merchants of different tribes to trade safely in Mecca's markets. Some modern historians, notably Patricia Crone in her influential but also contested study, Meccan Trade and the Rise of Islam, have questioned the scale of Meccan's long-distance trade in luxury goods such as incense, arguing the evidence for it is thinner than earlier scholarship assumed. This remains an active area of historical debate, though most historians continue to accept that Mecca was a functioning node of regional trade of some significance, even if its exact scale is contested. By the early 7th century, then, Arabia was a peninsula on the margins of two exhausted superpowers. The Byzantine and Sasanian empires had spent the preceding decades locked in devastating warfare, culminating in a major conflict beginning around 602 CE that left both empires financially and militarily depleted by the 620s. This regional power vacuum, combined with Arabia's internal tribal fragmentation, religious diversity, and growing trade connections, formed the backdrop against which a new religious movement would soon emerge from the city of Mecca.